Thank you, Gino. As I was listening to you sing, I had this thought, and we've all had this thought, or it's a feeling. You know, how many years you've lived, there's that part of you that seems like you're the same one, right? That sense of me, that sense of I am. You know, everything's changing on the outside. Certainly the bodies change, stories change, situations change. But that sense of I am doesn't change, does it? Don't you just feel like that same person? Not when you're connecting to your body necessarily, or looking in the mirror, or even looking at your life. Because we know everything must change in that particular field, in that domain of our existence. But what is it that doesn't change? And it's that sense of I am. It's that sense of awareness of my own being, which is, it's not a phenomena. It's not flesh. It's not story. It's not my name. It's not the form. But it's who I am. And there's no more spiritual notion than for us to return to that sense of I am. Prior to form, prior to name. That sense that you've always had. So I think as we enter into another year of change, yes? Don't we know it will be more changes? And do we know what those changes will be? No, we can set our intentions, we can have our resolutions, and we can set our goals, and hopefully some of those, or maybe most of those, will come true. But there are going to be a whole other set of changes in our life that we will not have written on our resolution list or our goal list, and they're going to come, and they're going to visit our life near you, called your life and my life. And as those things come to us, there will be a temptation for us to be swept into an identity that is related to the changes that are happening outside of us. We will be tempted to think that now that this has happened, it somehow has affected me. Well, yes, it may affect your body, and yes, it may affect your circumstances, and yes, it may affect your relationships, it may affect your career, it may affect your finances. But what about this one that we've just called to remember? This I am, that I am, that I am. This sense of me, this sense of knowing that this is the one that's been conscious of my beingness from the very moment that I can remember, and even before. So this is a good resolution for us to have, because don't we know that resolutions sometimes can be set up sometimes for us to feel like we haven't done so well. Right? Those resolutions where we're going to lose so much weight and we're going to quit this and start doing more of this and so forth. And then we kind of check in, and some of those things, somehow they don't happen. So anyway, that wasn't in my notes for this morning, but it came to me as you were singing. So thank you for giving me that other little piece for this morning. Resolutions for New Year's Eve, it's a popular thing for people to do. You know what a New Year's resolution is? Something that goes in one year and out the other. You heard that one? Yeah? Or for you techies, my New Year's resolution is 1080p. You may have to ask a techie person what that is. Every year I make a resolution to change myself. But how about this year I'm going to make a resolution to be myself. That's the one I really like the most. And that's really what we're here to learn, isn't it? Changing ourselves, it's all wonderful that we have these goals to, sort of self-improve, but there's a part of us that doesn't need any improvement, and we can't forget that. In our effort to try to, polish up this life, make more money, be more successful, maybe find a new relationship, all those things which are like the accoutrements of a life, say nothing about who you really are. Your spiritual being is already whole and complete and prosperous and love itself. So it's important for us when we get excited about a new year and all the changes that we're going to make in order to make it better, that we don't forget the God self that you already are, that you are already heaven made. And in that reality, you don't need any improvement. So how do we, well, there's an assumption here that I'm going to make here, and I think it may land true for most of you. I'm going to make an assumption that beyond any resolution that you might be making for next year, you want one thing. You want to experience more. Yeah, well, yeah, love, yes. I'm going to be more generic than that. Happiness. Happiness, which love certainly would bring us happiness. And this is the one great universal, that we all want peace and happiness in our life. And the thing, if we haven't quite gotten it yet, if we haven't quite gotten that inward sense of glee and joy and wholeness, which of course is our spiritual reality, then we are interested in practices, spiritual practices and ideas and ways that we can sort of, condition our consciousness to be more aligned with who and what we are. And so that's what I want to talk about today, things that we want to pay attention to and things that we want to pay less attention to. So I'm calling that appreciation and depreciation, okay? So appreciation, what's another word for appreciation? An attitude of gratitude. And this gratitude is the lesson that never can be said too much, because it's true that most of us have this thing called a negativity bias. Do you know that? I mean, even we want to be positive all the time, but we do oftentimes tend to see the glasses half empty. And we really admire people who always see the glasses being half full or more. And we have to understand that we have this negative bias. It comes to us naturally. It comes to us from, the ancient woman that we were when life was very dangerous, yeah? And so we had to watch out for beasts in the wilderness, and we couldn't really relax too much. The state of relaxation that you have right now would not bode well for you if you were in the wild back then, when, creatures and slithering things were all around you and there was no shelter, for example. So it was really a smart thing, evolutionary-wise, for you to become very aware of the things that could harm you and not give too much attention on just feeling how, yay, life is just so great and cool right here, and I'm just enjoying life, and I'm just loving it, and I'm just chillaxing, and everything is good. That attitude, not so good as an evolutionary driver into an evolved species to get you to this place today. So you have to thank your ancestors for that kind of tendency to be inclined towards the negative. But let's face it now, I don't see any saber-toothed tigers, anywhere around Unity of Santa Barbara. I don't think there's anything here that's going to harm us. And most of us live that life where we live in relative safety, yes? And we can be thankful for that. Not always the case around the world. So we have to realize that negative bias no longer serves us. And the way we do that is we sort of hit it with the antidote, which is being wastefully grateful, abundantly, excessively grateful. We sort of counteract this tendency to be negative. And when we do that, what we actually do is we have to spend more time focusing on things that are working in our life than the things that aren't working in our life. In other words, you might have to spend 5 times as much time as you normally do celebrating how life is working for you than you would when something's negative. Because when something's negative in your life, don't we just spend every waking moment thinking about it, and we lay awake at night, and we worry, and we kvetch, and we're anxious. But when something good happens, usually it's like, oh, that was great. Oh, wait a minute, what's the other shoe is going to drop here? Wait a minute, yeah. It's almost like we can't give ourselves permission to have much joy or much appreciation of life very long before there's this sense of foreboding, oh no, don't get too happy here. Have you ever anyone grow up with that sort of message from the parenting units that were in our experience? There was that, being happy there was something not quite right about that or unrealistic. And so we have to actually be intentionally affirmative, intentionally appreciative. That doesn't come as natural as being negative, for example. Do we know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay, good. It's not just me. Well, that's good. So That's appreciation, and we know how to do that. We know we can make our gratitude lists. We can take any moment throughout our day, and we can think about things that are working and we're happy and about, and we can just keep raising those up. And that is something that I would say would be a really good practice for the new year. Yeah? Yes. And then the other part is depreciation, which is what do we want to pay less attention to? And I've sort of already given that away to you. It's those things that we worry about, right? Those things that worry, that we're not sure how things are going to work out. We worry that it's going to be against us in some way. We're not going to be able to cope with a situation that's arising. We worry about our partners, our relationships. We worry about our children, our grandchildren. We worry about the weather. We worry about the government and whether they're, never mind the ball's going to drop in New York. What's happening in Washington with that ball, So, sorry, a little humor for you. But, there's so many things, and we don't even have to be that imaginative to think of things to worry about, do we? That it just sort of like pop up for us. But Jesus said what? Do not worry. Do not worry. Now, did Jesus have things to worry about? Yeah. In fact, he's got more drama in his life than most of us have in ours, I would say he had. And somehow he was still saying, do not worry. Someone said, worrying is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere, right? Have you noticed how you're just worrying, and nothing's changing, nothing's happening? So we know, and then there's this other thing. There's been all kinds of studies done about people that worry, and one of the studies said that 85% of what we worry about never happens. So this is I don't know French very well. Michel de Montaigne. That's a very, very Spanish impression of a French name. Anyway, whoever this was said, my life has been filled with terrible misfortune, most of which never happened. Yeah? So this study looked at the many ways that our imagined calamities never materialize in our life. And so these subjects were all asked to write down all their worries, and you could do this if you're so inclined, over an extended period of time, and then to identify which ones actually did not happen. And that is where this 85%. So it turns out that 85% of what they worried about never happened, which of course leaves 15% that did. But then 79% of the people discovered that they could handle the difficulty that was in that 15%. So we've done the math for you. And this means that 97% of what you worry about is not much more than a fearful mind punishing you with exaggerations and misperceptions. Do we agree? Yes. So we're only going to worry 3% of the time from now on, right? Right? Well, there's a difference, between worry and, legitimate concern and worry. Because worry is that sort of incessant, sort of negative thing that cycles around in our mind, and it just has us in a sense of tremendous amount of suffering. Don't we know this? It's not the kind of worry that leads to constructive action. It's just worry. It's just heavy. And they've done all these studies that people who have learned to get over worrying, everything gets better. Your relationships get better. Your health gets better. You live longer. Blah, 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 blah. So we know if we could take on letting go of worry and taking on gratitude, God, we got this life licked, right? But I do want to show a slide up here, which I think is kind of cool, because you will remember this, if nothing else. Do we have the slide? Yeah. Yes. So do you have a problem in life? If yes, can you do something about it? If yes, then why worry? If no, then why worry? Is that too simple? This actually comes from a Buddhist philosophy, which basically says, what is the value of this particular process? If there is nothing that you can do about it, what do you have to do? If there's nothing you can do about it, what is the action that you would take? Accept, right? Accept. And every spiritual practice leads you to acceptance, which is being with life as it is, just because it is. Not because you voted for it, not because you want it, not because it's for your highest good, not even getting to those high-minded ideas, just because it is what it is, right? And when I said this on our Christmas, a couple of weeks ago, is that when we get to that place of acceptance, when you actually come to that place where you just say, I can say yes to this because it is, what happens is we activate that whole spiritual capacity that we have. All of those aspects of our true nature, our wisdom, our love, our wholeness, the guidance that we're seeking, all of those things come rushing behind the yes. Because when we're saying no, what are we doing? We're resisting. And when we're resisting, what happens? The mind closes, the heart closes. And how much of an instrument for God are we when our mind and our heart is closed? So when life happens and you have a problem, and I don't wish any ill will on anyone, but I'm going to guess that some of you will have a problem or two in 2018. So what if this is not about, let me just say, this is not about spiritual bypass, which is the unhealthy thing, where problem comes up and you go, yes, a problem, and everything is good, and I'm celebrating that sort of denial. No, we're going to have our human experience. We're going to have our human reaction to things. It's just how long we stay with the human reaction before we can get to that place where we can say, yes, there it is. It washed up on my beach, must be mine to deal with. And when we can do that, we can get to yes. And we can trust God. We can trust whatever our higher power is. Said, if this is here, this is for me to deal with. This is something that I can deal with. I have the spiritual capacity to be with this. Remember that one in the very beginning, that I am, that's been there, that same one who's never been diminished by your life, by all those things that have ever happened to you in your life, that you wondered whether you were going to get through them, right? And here you are. You got through them. That's the one. That spiritual essence of your being is the one that can say yes with complete surrender to what is, because it has the capacity to be with whatever arises, and to have the strength, to have the wisdom, to have the courage, right, to deal with it. And the serenity prayer is probably the simplest encapsulation of that notion. And if you know it, say it with me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen? Amen. I'm going to leave you there for today. We have a nice, beautiful day ahead of us, and we have a big burning goal tonight. So whatever vestiges that are left that you want to let go of, old limiting beliefs and ideas, and I would say parenthetically that the best thing that I have experienced in the last couple of years has been going through this Q process, which is really about taking those limiting ideas and those beliefs and those shadow beliefs and actually bringing those into a light of awareness, and really beginning to see through those as being not who I am, but who I am not. That I am gets stronger when we let go of those ideas. So come tonight, if you will. We're going to symbolically release and let go of all those limiting ideas and beliefs, and we are going to find new ways to respond to life as a result of what? Not worrying, accepting, and finding the spiritual gifts to be with life, to say yes to life, however it shows up, to know that God goes with us. God enables us to do this life. Amen? Amen. Amen. Very good.